In a client-based business, there are two kinds of operators. One is closing deals through outreach, referrals, and follow-up, but they're wondering why it never gets easier despite them getting better. The other spends their time fielding inbound requests from people who already decided that they want to work together. And by the end of this video, you'll not only know exactly which engine you're running and what it's actually costing you to stay on the one that you're on, but you'll also know what you need to do in order to start attracting more leads to you that have already made up their mind to work with you. Now, I want to be clear up front because I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm saying here. This is not a stop grinding and start living type of pep talk. Hustle actually has a real legitimate job to do when it comes to getting more clients. And I'll show you exactly what that job is before we're done. But this is actually a video about math, about the actual mechanics of how demand moves and why one direction of demand compounds, while the other one evaporates the second that you stop feeding it. If we don't know each other yet, my name is Justin Glover, and I've spent 17 years in direct response marketing. And that's the most push-heavy discipline that there is. It's high volume, cold traffic, aggressive follow-up sequences, chasing that next campaign the second the last one cooled off. It's definitely a grind. And I was good at it, but that's actually the part that is a little hard to admit knowing what I know now. For years, I was doing everything right on the push side, and even still, nearly every single month felt like I was starting over from zero. Nothing was accumulating underneath me. I'd close out a great month and then the first of the next month would roll around and my numbers were back to nothing again. I didn't enjoy that part at all, and I thought the answer was more volume, more outreach, tighter follow-up, better scripts, but it wasn't. You see, I didn't have an effort problem at all. I had an underlying structural problem. And no amount of extra effort fixes a structural problem. Looking back, that is the single most expensive thing I misdiagnosed in my entire career. And I don't want you to make that same mistake. So let me define the two engines cleanly for you, because most people run one of these engines their entire life without ever even realizing it. Push is when you spend your energy to reach the market. I'm talking cold outreach, DMs, follow-up, chasing, dialing, just checking in on this, that kind of thing. You are the one that is expending fuel to close the distance between you and the buyer. But pull is the opposite. Pull is when the market spends its energy to reach you. Inbound applications, referrals that you didn't even ask for. The email that starts with, "I've been watching your stuff for months and I think it's finally time." So in push, you move towards them, but in pull, they move towards you. That's the whole difference. And it sounds simple, but the consequences of that direction are enormous and they're mathematical. Here's the analogy that I use. Push is like a rented apartment. Every month you pay and every month you get to keep living there. But the month you stop paying, you're out on the street with nothing because you never built any equity. You just kept the lights on. But pull is more like a house that you're slowly paying off. Yes, it might cost more up front, and yes, it's probably slower. It's also frustrating in those early years when it feels like nothing's actually happening. But every payment that you make, you actually own a little bit more of the thing. And eventually, you own it outright, and it keeps sheltering you in those years that follow, whether you're working that month or not. So now let's actually do the math, because this is where it starts becoming undeniable. All right, don't worry, it's math. I'm gonna keep it simple. Push is linear and it's capped. You have a fixed number of hours in a week. And the part that most people forget is that you have a fixed emotional bandwidth for rejection. You can maybe grind through 100 cold conversations before your energy starts dipping, your follow-up is getting sloppy and starts to sound desperate, and desperation is something that buyers can smell through a screen. So 100 hours of push, it does produce some numbers of deals. But then those 100 hours, they're gone, they're spent, they're evaporated. You can't get them back. Next month, the counter's gonna reset and you go and have to do 100 more. But pull works differently. Pull actually compounds. Every piece of authority that you build keeps working after you've walked away from it. I wrote things 3 years ago that are still bringing people to my door today. People that I've never met who arrive already convinced. So 100 hours spent building authority, it doesn't evaporate at the end of the month. It sits there, it accrues. It's still selling for you while you sleep, while you're pushing on something else entirely. One version disappears and one version keeps paying rent to you for years. That's the difference that matters. And I know exactly what you might be thinking right now because I thought it too. That's fine for somebody who has an audience already, but I don't have 3 years. I've got bills this month. And I get that, so stay with me because I will answer that directly near the end. And the answer is not what the hustle crowd tells you, and it's not what the guru crowd's going to tell you either. But before I address it, I first have to explain why pull actually works. Because if you don't understand the mechanism behind it, then you'll end up building the wrong thing completely. So the reason authority pulls is because it collapses the trust building step. Think about what a typical sales conversation actually is. Most of it isn't about the offer that you're selling. Most of it is you trying to establish in real time, under pressure, that you're competent, that you're not going to waste their money, that you're actually understanding their problem, and why they should invest in your solution. You're literally building trust from zero, live, on a call with a stranger. That is exhausting, but is also required for strangers that you haven't built that authority with already. Now picture the same conversation with someone who found you through some work that you've previously published. They've already watched you break down a problem exactly like theirs 6 weeks ago. So that trust building step is already done. It happened before the call, on their time, through your content. So when they finally do reach out to you, you're not selling. You're simply confirming a decision that they've already made. That's why inbound leads close much faster and easier, they negotiate less, and they end up staying longer. They didn't have to get talked into it. They talked themselves into it over weeks, consuming and actually using your material. I've watched this play out on both sides in the same week. There's this cold lead, somebody that I was chasing. It took something like 11 or 12 touches and a lot of convincing, and they still haggled on the price before actually signing up. And then on top of that, they churned after about 4 months because they were never really sold anyway. I sold them on that call. But they had an inbound lead that came in the same week who'd already been reading my weekly newsletter for over a year. They sent one email to me, I took one call with them, they didn't ask for a discount, and they came to the call with their credit card in hand. They also ended up staying around for over 2 years. That's the difference. One touch versus dozens of touches. Same me, same exact offer, completely different physics because the trust was actually built by pull instead of being manufactured by me pushing it on. Okay, but now we got to talk about the part that most people don't want to hear. If pull is so obviously better, why does almost nobody build it? Because the feeling of progress feels good to entrepreneurs, and push is the approach that feels more productive. Pull actually feels a little passive. When you're sending 50 DMs, you get immediate feedback. The numbers move and you see it. You feel like you're in control. You did this thing and you can see this thing. Authority is different. Authority has a lag. You plant now and it pays you later. And it's in that gap between planting and being paid where it feels like you're doing nothing. It feels like you're just waiting. And like I said, operators, especially the seasoned, competent, results-having operators that are watching this, we're addicted to the feeling of control because push scratches the itch that pull can't scratch for literally months. And that lag is the entire reason that people quit and end up staying stuck. It's not that they're avoiding building authority because they don't understand authority. It's that they can't sit in the discomfort of building something that doesn't pay back on the same day. And I want to name this for you because naming it is how you beat it. I call it the pull lag. The pull lag is the delay between the authority that you build and the demand that it produces. And that delay is not a bug, it's actually the moat. The only reason that authority is worth so much is that most people won't tolerate that lag long enough to build it in the first place. And the fact that it's uncomfortable is exactly why it stays scarce and valuable. It's also why your competition isn't doing it either. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So if you've ever built something real, done good work for people, but still felt like it never got any easier, like you're perpetually just starting over, I want you to drop the word renting in the comments right now because that's what you've been doing. You've been renting your revenue. And when you see other people commenting the same thing, I want you to understand that you're not broken and you're not lazy either. You've just been running the wrong engine and nobody's ever drawn you the right map. Here's what finally made me change. I started looking at the operators that are at the top of their game, the people that I actually study. And I noticed that none of them are out there cold DMing to get clients. Not one. They built authority engines that pull, and they let those engines do the work. And yet the advice being sold to everyone underneath them is still push harder, more volume, more outreach. And that's really the tale that got me thinking differently about all of this. The people who had made it to where I wanted to go, they had already stopped pushing. But the people selling advice to those still climbing are telling them to push forever. And that's the real gap that we're talking about here. And once you see it, it's hard to unsee. And before I give you the practical bridge to close that gap, one quick thing, because it's genuinely relevant to this exact problem. I put together a free training that walks through how to build a pull engine as a one-person operation without a big team or a big audience. We've already had a few thousand operators go through this, and the feedback so far has been amazing. The training and the blueprint is all free, and the link is below in the description. And I'm only mentioning it here because it's the natural next step for what I'm about to say. So go download the guide after you watch this video, but actually start using it to build your own authority asset that can pull people to you. Because here's the reality. Building authority used to require a team. Writers, editors, whole content operation. That's why it was slow, and that's why most solo operators couldn't do it. But now, with AI, leverage changes that. And AI doesn't replace your thinking. If you try to make it replace your thinking, then your authority is not going to be worth much. It's going to be worthless, because true authority is your thinking. That's the whole asset. But AI does let your thinking reach more people much faster. One operator can now produce authority at a scale that used to take an entire department. What that means is that the pull lag, the thing that used to be 3 years, can now be compressed. Not eliminated though, but compressed. And if your reason for not starting down this authority path right now is, yeah, but I have bills this month, you don't need to quit the push activities that you're doing, at least not cold turkey. Quite frankly, that would be irresponsible, and I'm not going to tell you to do it. Push is how you buy time. Push is how you generate the cash flow and the breathing room to actually build the pull engine that doesn't pay you back immediately. That's the real job of push. Push is not meant to be your forever strategy. It's meant to fund the construction of the thing that will replace it, which is pull. So you push to survive today, and you start building authority so you don't have to keep pushing tomorrow. And then slowly, as the pull engine warms up, you let that take over. You start handling fewer cold conversations because more warm ones are showing up. And that handoff from push funding the build to pull replacing the push, that's the entire game. But almost nobody makes that handoff. And that really is a tragedy. What most people do is they use push to survive, and then they just keep pushing forever because it works well enough, and that lag on building pull, it's scary. So they end up renting their revenue for 20 years and wondering why it never gets any easier. So here's the thing that I want you to walk away with. You don't have a work harder problem. All right, you've proven that you can work hard. That's not the issue. What you have is a direction problem. Right now, you're spending all of your energy to reach the market, and the shift isn't to just hustle harder or even work smarter. It's to start building the asset that makes demand come to you and to fund that build with the push that you're already doing, until the day the pull engine is carrying the weight and you're just confirming decisions that people have already made. So push is the treadmill that you rent. Pull is the machine that you own. Engineering that transition from push to pull, that's everything. That's the whole game. And if you want to see exactly what that pull engine looks like, built as a solo operator with AI leverage doing the heavy lifting, then watch the video that I'm going to link in the description, because it's the practical build out of everything that I just described. And if this video has reframed how you've been thinking about getting clients, hit the subscribe button also, because this channel is about building the business from the inside out instead of grinding it from the outside in. Oh, and one last thing. Tell me in the comments, which engine are you running right now in your business? Are you mostly pushing, mostly pulling? Are you stuck trying to make the handoff and not sure how? Be honest. I read all of the comments. I will reply to them. I want to see where you're actually at.